My name is Liz, and this is my thought for the week. So I want to read from Acts, just the first few verses in chapter 18. After this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Paul went to see them, and because he was a tent maker as they were, he stayed and worked with them. Every Sabbath he reasoned in the synagogue, trying to persuade Jews and Greeks. And as I was reading that, something really struck me, and that was the fact that it says that Paul was a tent maker. Now, when you meet Paul in Acts, when you look at his conversion, it talks about how he persecuted the church. He was a very righteous, religious leader, Jew, very strong beliefs, persecuted the Christians. We don't really think of him as having another profession. And we read in these verses that he was actually a tent maker, which is actually quite a surprise when you think about all of the preaching and teaching and travelling and his authority in the synagogue that he had. And what I find really lovely is the fact that despite his amazing conversion, despite preaching and spending a lot of time travelling around and sharing the gospel and encouraging the new Christians, he still comes to Priscilla and Aquila, a couple who work together as tent makers, and he works with them. He's not above working. He's not above humbling himself and actually doing a trade. And it's really interesting when you look at the Bible about what trades you find there. So you see centurions, you see tax collectors, you see fishermen, you see a cloth seller, you see homemakers, a prison guard, a carpenter, servants, a doctor. And what's really lovely is that the gospel reaches all of these professions and beyond. And I think it shows that the gospel is for everyone. And I think sometimes we can feel a bit like we have a kind of a secondary calling if we're working or if we're a homemaker. You know, we're not the pastor, we're not a preacher. But actually, God can use you in whatever profession you are in. You can speak to your colleagues. You can have words of life that they will never hear from anywhere else. A lot of these professions that we find are manual professions, carpenters, tent makers, they would probably, the equivalent is probably our builders and other skilled labourers and fishermen still today. And perhaps these people will not go into a church. So maybe you're who God wants to use to reach out to them and to share the good news with them. So I just want to encourage you that whatever you're doing at the moment in your life, whatever job that you have, whatever profession, God can use you right where you are. So be encouraged, because you have so much purpose where you are. And actually we're called to be like Paul and humbly serve in our day-to-day life. And we can humbly serve God in whichever path he's put us on. So be encouraged and have a great week.